Hello everyone, and welcome to my Soap Twist 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. My beautiful Steffi, if you are reading this, it means I no longer have the fortitude to utter these things to your face, for which I am more sorry than you can imagine. The machines are humming softer now, the nurses come and go on tiptoe, and Ridge is sleeping in the vinyl chair with his head on my bed, just like he used to do on the sofa after long hours at Forrester when we were still young enough to believe nothing could separate us. I asked the nurse to wait until I was gone before handing you this letter. I didn't want you to feel forced to come while I still saw hatred in your eyes. Some things are easier to say to an absence than to a living, breathing lady who wishes you hadn't lived. You won. I need you to know this first because I've never stated it aloud before, and I'm running out of time to be honest. You won the war we'd been fighting since the day you gazed at me across the living room in the Forrester home and determined I was the reason your mother could never be content. You kept your father. You kept your family together in the only way that mattered to you. Ridge is fully yours now, free of the continual drawback to me that used to make him pace, drink, and stare out windows like a man waiting for a storm that never comes. I see it in the way he now refers to home as the mansion on the cliff, rather than the small cottage in the valley where he and I once painted the nursery yellow because we hoped we'd finally have the kid we were losing. He is at peace in a manner he never was when loving two women at the same time. You handed him that. I never could. I'm not writing to ask for forgiveness. I know you too well for that. I'm writing because there are some realities I need to set down before I depart this earth, truths I was too proud or too afraid to utter when I still had a voice you may have heard. I want them to exist outside of me right now, just as a child does after birth. Steffi, you may either read them or destroy them. They're yours anyway. I loved your father in a way that destroyed me long before this disease entered my lungs. I loved him with an uncontrollable greed, the type of love that looks at a married guy and thinks, he will be mine, consequences be damned. I told myself it was destiny, that the universe kept bringing us together because we were destined to be. But the truth is more basic and ugly. I wanted him more than I wanted to be nice. Every time I slid into his bed while your mother was still wearing her wedding ring, I told myself Taylor would make it, that she was strong, that she had you, Thomas, and Phoebe, and a full life that didn't rely on Ridge in the same way I did. I was mistaken. Strength does not make a person bulletproof, and each affair wore her down until there was nothing left but the medicines and the quiet room where she eventually gave up. I understand you blame me for it. You should. I blame myself, too, now that the numbness of longing has worn off, and I can see plainly. Steffi, I was never the victim in our story. That was the fiction I told myself for decades to help me sleep at night. I was the storm. I blew into your family with my smiles, tears, and poor Brooke, always misunderstood persona, and I took what I wanted because I could. Your mother was a victim of collateral harm. You and your siblings were collateral damage. Even Hope, my own daughter, grew up in the aftermath of the decisions I made while seeking a man who would never pick me once and for all. I look at her and see the same hunger in her eyes that I had when I was her age, the desire to be the one for whom others would traverse seas, and it frightens me that I pass this plague down like a family relic. You used to nickname me the slut from the valley. I laughed on the outside, but every time you said it, something inside me curled up tighter. Because you were correct. Not about the sex. Sex was never the fault, but about selfishness disguised as passion. I mistook obsession for love, convincing half of Los Angeles that it was romantic. I stood in bridal gowns I had no right to wear and shed real tears when the groom realized he couldn't abandon his children's mother again. And every time something went wrong, I found someone else to blame. Caroline, Taylor, the cosmos, you. Anyone but the lady in the mirror, who continued making the same decision and expected the world to revolve around her pain. Ridge is now crying silently, as men do when they believe no one is watching. He believes I am sleeping. He keeps mumbling that he is sorry, that he should have been stronger, that he should have chosen one of us and stuck with it. I'd like to tell him to stop. The tragedy was never that he was unable to choose. The sadness was that he chose, repeatedly, every time he returned to me after promising you and Taylor that it was over. He picked turmoil because, deep down, he is also addicted to it. We recognized that in one other the first time we kissed in that Forrester lab, two persons who would rather burn down the home than live in it peacefully with another. You gave him calm, Steffy. Taylor gave him stability. I offered him fire. People who are terrified of the dark find fire to be a comforting presence. I need you to grasp something about the last 20 years. Every time you thought I was trying to get him back, I was actually pushing him away. I knew what I was. I knew I was going to destroy him eventually. But he would come to my door with that look, as if he was drowning without me, and I would let him in because I was drowning as well. We were each other's favorite drug. You can criminalize a substance, but if two addicts continue to meet in dark alleys, the substance will triumph. There is a small, egotistical, dying part of me that wants you to be kind to Hope after I am gone. She will lose her mother and her anchor in the same breath, and she will turn to your father for consolation, as she always has, and you will despise her for it. Please try not to. She never had the opportunity to be anything other than my daughter, raised on the gospel that love is worth any price. I taught her that with every story I told her about Ridge and me, and every time I let her watch me cry over someone else's boyfriend. If she repeats my mistakes, it will be because I created the template. I've made arrangements. She owns the house in Bel Air outright. Everything I have left after paying the medical bills is shared among her, Bridget, and Rick, plus a trust for RJ, things he can't touch till he's 30, since God knows he's too similar to his parents at 20. There is a letter for every one of them, but this one is specifically for you. Because you are the one I owe the proper accountability to. I know you retained the file. The one with the proof of the swapped paternity tests, the drugs in Taylor's drawer, and Deacon and Diana's DNA. I know you've been waiting for the right time to use it to finally bury me for good. You don't have to wait any longer. Use it. Leak it. Stand over my grave and scream the truth to the newspapers if it brings you peace. I will not torment you for that. There's nothing left to preserve. My legacy is already inscribed on the features of the children who grew up visiting their father in two different homes, as well as in the eyes of a lady who once loved me but can no longer mention my name without tasting blood. Ridge is waking up. He can feel me looking at him. He's squeezing my hand as if he can keep me here with sheer willpower. I only have a few minutes now, not hours. The morphine is singing in my veins, and everything is softening at the edges. I want the final thing I write to be something you can carry without harming yourself. Steffy Forrester, you are the daughter I never had and the nemesis I earned. You battled for your family with a tenacity that I've only ever seen in myself. I hated you for it once. Now I understand that it was the purest form of love, the type that draws a line in the sand and dares the world to cross it if it wants to hurt the people you care about. I crossed the line 1,000 times. You never let me forget that. Thank you for that. Thank you for being the wall that I ultimately broke through. If there is any justice in whatever happens next, I hope I get to see you live the life I was attempting to steal pieces of. I hope you marry someone who sees you in the same way Liam did before my daughter, and I showed him that love is a war. I hope your babies have Forrester eyes and your mother's soft hands. I pray you never have to choose between your heart and your conscience, because I assure you that the heart lies. It lies elegantly, convincingly, and endlessly, but it lies. I am very exhausted right now. Tell your father I've released him. Tell him the storm has passed, and he may go home. Tell him that I've finally realized that home was never something we could build together. It was the same place he had before, with you, Thomas, and the grandchildren climbing all over him as he pretended to be grumpy. He was born to live that life. I just blocked him from experiencing it for 40 years. Steffy, if you can, someday, when your fury is gone, think about me without hatred. I do not deserve forgiveness, only the absence of hatred. That will be sufficient. The machines are beeping slowly. Ridge is crying harder. I have to go. I loved him enough to destroy both of us. You loved him enough to save him. You were always a better woman.
Goodbye.
Ridge heard the quiet buzz of equipment as soon as he opened the door to the ICU room. It was a sound he hoped he'd never have to identify with Brooke, one that contained both caution and hope. Hope that she was still alive. She was warned that she was in serious danger. But nothing prepared him for her body's immobility beneath the immaculate hospital linens, or the faint flutter of air that scarcely lifted her chest. He paused just inside the threshold, unable to move any closer. For a few moments, he could imagine she was merely sleeping, that this was one of those rare mornings when she allowed herself to rest, that the world outside Forrester Creations, free of the turbulence of blended families and decades-old rivalries, could wait. However, the stark white bandage over her temple and the monitors flickering in repetitive patterns told him otherwise. Ridge's hand trembled as he groped for the bed rail. "Logan," he said, weak and shattered. He'd said it countless times, with love, frustration, longing, and even laughter, but never like this. Never while thinking that it would be the last time she heard him. They had told him that she was stable, at least for now. Stable. The word had never felt more unclear. The gentle rustle of paper drew his attention. On the wheeled bedside table, between a pitcher of water and a little arrangement of withering flowers, was an envelope. His name was printed across the front in Brooke's elegant, familiar handwriting. The curve of the R, the confident tilt of the G, it was undeniable. Ridge looked at it like it was a ghost. He did not touch it at first. He wasn't certain he could. The prospect of Brooke writing a letter, possibly his final letter, threatened to shatter the tiny sliver of serenity he'd held since arriving at the hospital. He didn't want her final words to be ink on paper. He wanted them spoken by the woman who had fought beside, for, and with him. Spoke in that soothing and energizing voice. But the envelope remained there, silent and full of meaning he wasn't ready to confront. Behind him, the door slid open again, and gentle footsteps followed. Ridge did not need to turn to see who it was. Steffy's presence was unmistakable, confident, concentrated, and filled with care. "Dad?" she inquired calmly, her voice gentle in ways it rarely needed to be. He did not respond immediately. He could not. Steffy stepped beside him, her gaze going from him to Brooke. Brooke's powerlessness and vulnerability ripped through her normal shield of strength. Despite the fact that Steffy and Brooke had clashed so frequently over Ridge, family loyalties, and years of damaged histories, seeing her like way disarmed Steffy's entire barrier. Steffy remarked, "She's going to make it," despite the terror in her eyes. "The doctors." Ridge shook his head, not in disagreement, but because his throat clenched from being too emotional to talk. When he eventually found his voice, it was strained. "She left a letter." Steffy's face furrowed. "A letter?" He nodded. Her eyes deepened with cautious curiosity. The thought that Brooke had written something emotional, possibly final, felt weighty. Steffy had always thought Brooke had overly strong feelings for Ridge. A letter can mean anything. A confession. A Jew. A plea. "Dad, maybe you should read it," she said softly. Ridge gulped hard. "I'm not ready." His voice broke. "If I open it, it feels like I'm accepting the possibility that she wrote it because she thought she might not make it." Steffy placed a hand on his shoulder. "She is strong, Dad. She's been through so much. She will also endure this." He nodded, but his gaze remained fixed on the text. Steffy paused before speaking again. "What happened?" Ridge averted his sight from the package and eventually glanced at his daughter. "They believe she fell. Hard. Hit her on the head. They don't know if she slipped or..." His jaw tightened. "Or if someone was with her." Steffy's expression hardened. "Do you suppose someone hurt her?" "I don't know," Ridge said. "All I know is that she did not come home. She did not call. And then the hospital called me instead." There was a little pause between them. Too weighty, too full of unsaid dread. Steffy looked over the letter again. "Dad, if Brooke sensed danger, she might have written something to protect you. Or to explain." The notion hit Ridge so hard that he had to brace himself against the bed. Brooke had always been intensely sensitive, but also protective of those she cared about. If she feared something or someone, She would definitely leave a warning. His heart thumped harder. Steffi noticed his anxiety and took a short step back to observe him intently. "Do you want me to stay?" Ridge hesitated before shaking his head. Steffi agreed. "I need a moment alone with her." She stroked her palm across his arm, a rare and intimate gesture of comfort, before heading toward the door. "Call me if anything changes. With her or with you." He nodded gratefully and she left. Silence fell again. Thick. Sacred. Ridge moved a chair closer to Brooke's bedside and sat, his fingers quivering as he finally picked up the envelope. The paper was soft from use, and the faint aroma of her perfume clung to it, a harsh reminder of the woman who lay motionless inches away from him. For a few seconds, he just held it between his palms, as if he could absorb her strength through the wrapped paper. Then he cautiously tore open the packet. Brooke's handwriting extended across 2 pages. Elegant, emotional, heartfelt. He began reading. "Ridge, my love." The first line alone broke him. Tears obscured his vision as he pushed himself to continue. She wrote about memories, regrets, and unconditional devotion. She confided to anxieties she hadn't said aloud, fears about family breakdowns, jealousies and resentments that had reappeared in recent months, and the dangerous balance between everything they had built and everything that endangered them. Then her tone changed. Brooke talked about a confrontation she hadn't shared to anyone. A tension had been building around her. Someone unidentified but dangerous. She felt like she was being watched, followed. She had dismissed it at first, believing it was her imagination, stress, or the product of all the emotional turmoil in their lives. But the night before her accident, she wrote that the feeling had intensified, to the point where she composed the letter you are currently holding, in case something happens. Ridge's breath hitched. She didn't think anything serious would happen. Brooke always attempted to see the good in others, especially those who had wronged her in the past. But she wrote the letter anyhow, motivated by an unshakable gut instinct. "If you're reading this, Ridge, something went wrong." Ridge put the page to his forehead as he sobbed. He did not fight them. He let his anguish, fear, and throbbing love flow out of him. His shoulders shook as the weight of her words sparked a fury within him. How many times had they overcome unfathomable odds? How many times had they lost each other before finding their way back? And now she lay in a hospital bed, her life hanging in the balance, leaving him with her anxieties written on paper. When Ridge finally dropped the letter, his vision was obscured by tears. But beneath the pain, something sharp and uncompromising emerged. Resolve. He stood, leaned over Brooke, and kissed her cool forehead. "I am here, Logan. I am not going anywhere." His voice cracked. "I am going to find out what happened to you. I swear." Her fingers twitched. Ridge froze, catching his breath. He looked down with wide eyes. "Brooke," he whispered. No response. But her fingers had moved. He had not imagined it. He softly grabbed her hand and held it between his 2 hands, as if his warmth alone might entice her to return. "Come on, Logan. Get back to me. I need you. Our family needs you." The machine beeped constantly alongside them, unconcerned by his anguish. As he clasped her hand, he remembered the letter, the peril she alluded to. She'd carried a sensation of dread. Someone had scared her enough to plan for the worst. Somebody had done this. His jaw constricted as the realization took root. Steffi had thought Brooke's final letter would rock her, and she was correct. If what Brooke wrote pointed to someone threatening her, the repercussions would be catastrophic. Families would be shaken. Relationships were tested. Truths were revealed. Ridge wasn't sure he was ready for everything the letter implied, but he would discover it. For Brooke. For the woman whose love had shaped his life over decades. For the woman who, even while unconscious, held his heart in her hands. He took a deep, unsteady breath, kissed her hand, and whispered, "Just hold on." Nothing in the world, fear, uncertainty, or fate, could stop him from fighting for her. As he stood there, unaware of the storm that Brooke's letter would unleash on his family and the entire Forrester world, He made a silent promise to expose any secrets hidden in Brooke's final warning. Even if it meant bringing down someone he didn't expect. Even if it meant discovering a truth that would alter everything.